Raising children in today's world can sometimes be challenging. We know how to feed, house, and clothe them. But how about parenting? What is and is not normal for each age and stage of childhood? Parenting effectively, next on Living Smart. Welcome to Living Smart, the show designed to help you get the most out of life. As parents face more social, economic, and emotional challenges to raise children, they need parenting tools to be more effective. Deborah Fry has been coaching parents since 1990. She uses stories, group exercises, and humor to assist people in improving relationships with their children. Today, she'll discuss parenting strategies, conflict resolution skills, and teamwork by redirecting children's behavior. Deborah Fry, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And this is such an important topic. Any parent is always trying to figure it out and what do we do next? But some basic things that we don't do as parents, like what are some of the questions you need to ask yourself before you become a parent, for instance?
Well, yeah, in an ideal situation, we remember, let's ask these questions before we have children.
Kids.
Yeah. And so what I recommend to parents when they ask, where do we begin, is I always tell them to have a little exercise for themselves. The mom and the dad, both partners, sit down and write down 10 values that you would like your son or daughter to have.
Interesting.
As an adult. So your question to yourself is, what kind of man would I like my son to become? Mm-hmm. Or what kind of woman would I like my daughter to become? And write those down separately. And then do the little exercise of bringing them together and see what you have in common.
Why? With your spouse.
With your spouse. So you know these things, honesty, integrity, compassion, these things we have in common. And there are some things you're not going to have in common. And that's the great place to begin to negotiate. Could we marry these two and get what we want? Or could we agree that this is what we're going to focus on? Because keeping 10, and they don't really change that much.
Right.
Because, you're there with your value system. That's probably what drew you together.
Right.
So that's a great beginning exercise. And if you can do it before you have children, it starts to sign your mind in a place where, this is what I know I want to go for. This is how I know we want to focus our time. So that you can then, I've always heard the difference between a dream and a dream come true is an action plan.
Right, an action plan. Plan ahead.
Yeah.
How do we teach kids to be teachable? To be able to receive information.
The teaching. Yeah, great question. I think that oftentimes we don't really know that, the brain works in a certain way. And to make it simple, because the brain is a quite complex thing, we have the brain stem, which checks out, are we safe? And then we have the limbic system, which is the emotional system, and it checks out, am I loved? And then we have the cortex, which says, I can learn. Mm-hmm. So those three kind of gross descriptions of the brain let us know that we're ready for learning. But until we put certain things in place with a child, those things we can't check off. So what are the things we need to put in place, right?
Right.
It's really a good idea to know how much sleep a child should have at the age they are. Sleep is fundamental to brain development. And napping, really an important quality for kids to carry till they're 3 or 4 years old. Okay, so we want to think about sleep, get the right amount. The average amount of sleep for a child under the age of 5 is somewhere between 11 and 15 hours, depending on their age. So we want to know what, and there are a lot of resources around that say, this is a good, number of hours per day. This is a good nap window. This is the number of hours of nap that it should have, and this is a good bedtime. Generally speaking, though.
Right. What about 5 to 10?
5 to 10?
Age 5 to 10.
They need less sleep, not napping. So we're going to go, 11, 10, 9, 8. But you can go under 8. I mean, we as adults.
As a society, we're going under 8, and that's not healthy.
Sleep deprived. Just, heard a report yesterday, in fact, that people who sleep 5 or 6 hours are 3 times more likely to get sick.
Interesting.
Than people that get 7 or 8 hours of sleep. So that's what we want to go for. So sleep is a really important thing to make a child teachable. Mm-hmm. Activity level, really an important thing. When we overbook children...
And we're doing that as parents, aren't we?
We are. We just don't mean to. We look around, we see other people doing it, and yet it's real important not to overbook them, because it puts them in just a receptive mode, and what you really want them to be doing is spontaneous free play. That's where they learn how to be human beings, in spontaneous free play. So, booking more
That's not considered computers or sitting on a TV, in front of a TV set. It's
no,
actually play.
It's not. That's one of the things that you want to balance.
Right.
You want to balance the media.
Right.
The electronics, all those kind of things. Kids under 5 need about an hour a day in 30-minute units, so that they're not overstimulated by the electronics, okay? Hydration, very, very important. Diet, very, very important. Children need to be sure to drink plenty of water and less juice. And then the diet needs to be fiber protein-based diet. And what do kids love? Carbs.
Candy and sugar.
Candy and
it's
sugar
terrible
carbs,
for
yeah.
them. I mean,
well, it
people
just
don't
doesn't
realize,
help the brain.
Right.
Yeah.
The sugar, doesn't it just make them wired?
Well, there's lots of research on both sides of that. And, I teach 3 days a week and with young 3s. And I can tell you when, we have cupcakes for somebody's birthday.
You can tell.
I'm glad they're going outside. Yeah.
Yeah, the carbs are not really good for kids to start them
Well,
out.
they're not bad, but it's not the only thing they should have. Unfortunately, they have a lot of taste buds. They have like 10,000 taste buds in their mouth. We as adults have maybe 3,000. And so they don't like things full flavored. That's why they love to go to the whites, the white bread, the white noodle, that kind of thing. So they're really interested in that, and we want to help cultivate these other tastes for them.
You have to be aware of what they should be eating. Now, when a child misbehaves, what are some of the questions parents need to ask themselves?
Well, I think it's real important to start kind of at a base premise, telling ourselves this is our mantra, okay? All behavior is communication. The question I'm asking myself as a parent is, what is my child communicating? And then, of course, I need to know how to diagnose that. What are they communicating? So Rudolf Dreikurs, who the theory of the redirecting concepts based on, said that humans are hardwired in a certain way, and that children are small human beings, which we all kind of agree, with less life experience, right? But small humans. And he said that we are motivated to make the choices or the behaviors that we do by how we're interacted with. So what creates that motivation? We have a need, 5 actually needs. We have a need for connection, our belonging. And when I say these, I'm sure you can find them in yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
We have a need to feel powerful, not that I have power over you, but that I have decision-making in me. I can choose, right? We have a need for an identity.
Okay.
We have a need to be valued. And the 5th need, actually, he says, is a freebie. He says, when a child feels connected with and empowered and validated and seen, they feel this 5th need. They feel loved. And that love doesn't really come from where we go or what we do or what school we go to or any of those things that we kind of can get distorted in the external world, but they come from this level of relationship. And so that's what a parent is going to ask themselves. What are they communicating? Because I know they have these needs, and where am I missing maybe these needs? And what can I do to meet those needs? So there are several things that can be done.
Do.
Sure.
Let's talk about those. Does that have to do with genuine encounter moments
Absolutely.
that you have with parents?
Absolutely. Gems.
With your children. Gems. You call them gems.
Gems are genuine encounter moments. We call them gems because they're precious, like a gem, right? And gems are the good antidote, if you will. If you're thinking of what's good preventative medicine, right? The good antidote for this need for belonging or connection. Children feel connected with or belonged, like they belong to you, when you have heart-to-heart connection with them, okay? And so it doesn't mean, I can just throw them in the car and do errands and I've been with my kid, They're looking for you to really be heart-to-heart with them, that you're going to play with them on the floor, that you're going to have a special date with them, that you're going to go on a little outing. Not that it has to cost money, just out, riding a bike or on a walk or on a nature hunt. Those are the kind of things that kids enjoy. And so those happening on a regular basis are really important. The statistics show that children get spoken to by their parents maybe 12.5 minutes a day.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and of that 12, 8.5 are in correction, criticism, and that kind of negative interaction.
That's surprising.
So real important that we are conscious in making our choice, to, I'm going to spend some one-on-one time here. Slow it down, connect.
Are there certain things that you teach as far as, for example, getting up in the morning with your child and asking a certain question to start the conversation, or when they get home from school, asking a certain question to get them talking and to create that kind of connection? But you're talking about doing things physically with the child, and that's understandable. But isn't there a way, sometimes I find, and I don't have kids, but I have nephews, find that it's very important to ask the right question, because otherwise they don't talk.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about young children is they're great teachers of living in the moment.
Okay.
And they just live in the moment. So if you ask a 5-year-old, what'd you do at school today?
They're not going to say.
I don't know.
Right.
So if you want to have conversation, if you want to have connection, you might want to just start right where you are. So you're just hanging, just being there.
You don't have to talk.
And you don't have to talk. You might invite them to play Legos. You want to play some Legos?
Right.
That kind of thing. And let the talk be secondary, particularly with boys. Girls and women are much more language-based than boys. Women speak probably about 25,000 words a day.
Ask the husbands, yeah.
Men about 5,000. Okay,
yeah.
So there's this huge difference, and it's not doesn't just happen as a man becomes a man. It happens, from the beginning. The brains are very different.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned that your voice tone is very examples when you're talking to children and when you discipline them. Why is that, and what kind of tone should you be using?
Okay, you remember earlier when we were talking about the brain?
Right.
And I said this determines, are we safe, brain stem, and am I loved and
safe and
loved and learn, all right? So when we're disciplining, we want our children to be able to learn something new. We're disciplining for the future. We're not trying to make this moment go away. We're talking about what's going to happen the next time, right? So our tone of voice will make this click happen where, yes, I'm safe, yes, I'm loved. Oh, now I can learn.
Right.
So you want to understand that, the voice is going to make or break that connection. So if I said, pick up the toys, it's pretty harsh. And did you see how your body went like that?
Exactly.
It was threatened.
Right.
So your brain is now saying, I need to decide, am I going to fight or flee? I'm going into defense physiology.
Right, exactly.
Right. So tone of voice would be,
very important. Now, you also say that you have to offer children choices when you're disciplining them. What do you mean by that? Give me examples of that.
Sure. When we were talking about the things that make kids teachable, and we said, when a child feels empowered, they get more.
They can handle it better.
Yes. So, choice is a way to help children feel powerful. Okay. We feel powerful when we have choice. I always say this thing to parents. I say, do you think that when you have a lot of money, you have a lot of power? And some people say yes. And I said, really what you have is a lot of choice when you have a lot of money.
Yeah, you have more choices. Yeah, that's true.
So when you have a lot of choice, you feel powerful. So we equate that with money.
Right.
Actually, with children, they love to be able to choose about how things are done. They shouldn't be choosing like, should they be done? That's our job. Right? So we always want to make sure when we're offering choice to a child that we lay the boundary down. It is bedtime. Do you want to hop or skip? It's bath time. Bubbles or no bubbles? These are called alternative choices, and they're always after the boundary. So there's no question as the parent, is saying bath time, bedtime. We're doing these things. It's just a matter of how we're going to get there.
Yeah, that's not negotiable. You're going to bed.
Yeah, right.
How are you going to go to bed?
Yeah, exactly.
That's another issue.
Exactly.
Let's talk about, you say it's very important to remain positive no matter what happens. Give me examples of that, what you should do and what you shouldn't do as a parent.
I think one of the things to remember is, again, back to how the brain works, and that is that we are much more able to become compliant when someone asks us to do what they want us to do, rather than it tells us, no, don't stop. So if I said to you right now, whatever you do, Patty, don't look down at your foot because there's something weird down there, you would want to look down there, right? So for a child, the same. We want to actually ask them to do what we want them to do as often as we can. So we want inside voices, we ask for inside voices. Or we want them have their bottom in the chair, instead of saying, sit in the chair, we say bottom in the chair, please. Feet on the floor, please. Listening ears, please. Things that we want from them, we ask them to do. Even ourselves, it's good to remind.
You don't command to do it. You ask them to do it.
Well, I think the tone of voice is all that there is,
Yeah,
to come
that's
back to
basic.
it. Yeah.
What about, you're very strict about this, and that is you need to know as a parent what is developmentally appropriate.
Sure.
Why is that so important, and is that easy to get that information?
Sure.
Like
yeah.
from age 0 to 5, they're going to act like this, or from 5 to 10, or from 10 to 20, whatever. Right. You need to know that. Why is that so important?
Yeah. Well, simple answer is if we're asking a 2-year-old to do something that's 4-year-old development, we're not going to be very successful with that 2-year-old. And in these early years, in the years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's so much brain development going on that every year is different.
Happens, right?
Yeah, it's really critical those first 3 years, and then 5 to 10. But now in brain research, what we know is that the brain continues to develop in the early 20s.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, this idea of asking, to do what you want them to do is just a helpful way to get that.
Okay, so no, it's very important to have that information to see how you discipline them and what age you
Yeah,
discipline
the developmental,
them.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You also talk about eye level. You've got to be on the same eye level. Like if they're little, you get down and you look at them. Why is that? I mean, and I would think that's important for adults anyway, right?
Sure.
You're looking at people in the eyes.
Absolutely.
But why is it so important to get at their eye level?
Yeah.
To discipline them.
Yeah, either go down to theirs or bring them up to yours, And I don't think that's just true with discipline. I think it's true anytime we're talking to a child. And discipline simply means when we're teaching.
Right.
It's a word that
think
means
of it as
to
a
teach.
teaching
Yes,
tool, yeah.
It means to teach. And again, as you know, when we're eye to eye, we are looking deep into who we are.
Right.
And children can see, they make this connection of the eyes. You see,
Right.
when they're really little, they don't have enough sophistication to decode all the language. So what they're reading is who you are, energetically. And your eyes give so much information to them. And they need to learn that they're humans and that humans make eye contact. They need to be taught those kind of things. So anytime, and it's not something to get in an argument about or to have a power struggle about, but whenever we can make that an important thing, and as I mentioned earlier, we talk a lot, women, so we tend to multitask and not really make so much eye contact while we're doing our day.
Okay.
Loading the groceries in the car and having the conversation instead of taking the moment to stop and look at them in the eye and say,
Okay.
it would be so helpful to Mommy if you could put yourself in the car seat. So get in the car seat.
Right. Very good point. When do you know that you're over-parenting? I've seen some of those parents.
Yeah.
Over-parenting a child.
Yeah.
When they take over your life.
Well, over-parenting really kind of means that we're doing too much for the child. So I always tell moms and dads to ask themselves, it's kind of daily mantra, what's one thing I'm doing for my child this week that he or she could do for themselves?
Uh-huh.
And then teach it. So, parents have the same 5 needs, right? And because they have those needs, sometimes they'll elongate a phase or a stage of a child's development to meet their need of value. Oh, I'm valuable because I can, dress him. When at age 3, he should be dressing himself, right? And so we really want to take the time to slow down and begin to teach those skills that teach independence, teach confidence, teach connection, so that they can grow and thrive. And it doesn't mean we have to quit spending time with them. We just learn a new way to spend time with them.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a good question. What's one thing I'm doing this week that they could do for themselves?
You say it's very important to encourage children, not so much praise them. Mm-hmm. Why is that? What's the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, most people use those words interchangeably, really. The subtle difference, to keep it simple, is that when we praise, we are focusing on the end product, or the doing, we call it. Good job, good boy, good girl. I love that picture. That's all praise statements. When we encourage, you kind of look at that word and it means with courage. Courage comes from the heart. And how do we get that place ripe? How do we follow that place and teach to follow that place? Children need to be introduced to themselves through encouragement. So encouragement is about the being. So when we see our child build blocks 9 tall, it's a great thing to describe it enthusiastically. This would be encouraging. You used 10 blocks to build that tower. You're amazing. That's an encouraging kind of thing. Or you worked hard. Information. character information. So encouragement passes on character information. It talks about the process. Praise really talks about the product. So we say that the being in encouragement, the doing in praise.
It's more comprehensive, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Encouragement.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what happens to kids when you don't discipline them, when they have no boundaries.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I think that one of the things that we have to remember is that boundaries, routines, structure provide for kids a certain kind of security.
Safety.
Feeling safe. It's predictable. I can count on it because they aren't so complicated, right? So those routines, breakfast routines, nap routines, nighttime routines, really, really important. They love to do the same, over and over and over again. And any parent of a 2-year-old will tell you they have read Goodnight Moon 1,000,005 times because that's the favorite of 2-year-olds. Good night, moon, mommy. Good night, moon, mommy. And they're like sleeping and reading Goodnight Moon. But really, the child loves the repetition, so they feel safe and secure. Yeah.
Repetitive patterns, I've heard, very important, where they know what's coming next.
Yeah.
What about I see this as well, and I'm sure you do too. What about children who know how to manipulate parents, who can walk all over their parents, who really have taken over the household?
Yeah.
And they're young. Not necessarily teenagers, but young kids.
Sure.
Why does that happen in the first place?
I think that's an excellent thing to think about in today's world. And my opinion, from the experiences I have, is that parents oftentimes want to be their friend, the child's friend. And I just say, children are going to have hundreds and hundreds of friends in their life. You're not one of them.
Well, you're a parent.
Your job is to parent. And so that, and another thing that we find in the busy family systems and double working families is guilt. Guilt will oftentimes allow us to believe that we should allow the child to
get away with whatever.
Yeah. And it just creates an anxious child, lack of boundaries, anxiety. Lots of times we think children are attention deficit when in fact they're just missing structure and boundary and understanding the balance of power in the house.
Now, we talked a little bit about this, and I think this is very important. The first 5 years of a marriage or first 5 years of a partnership with kids, how do they take care of each other so that they can become good parents?
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is that those first 5 years are so high maintenance.
For everybody, for your marriage and your kids, right?
Yeah. Well, some parents wait a while and then they have kids. Some parents have children right away because we're waiting later, to have children. The thing about those first 5 years, just the day-to-day requirements are so high that the relationship tends to take back seat.
Right.
And unless we are consciously making choices to keep the romantic connection alive in the relationship, we kind of go on what's called contractual time, where the contract is I do the bed, you do the bath. I do the bath, you do the books, that kind of thing. And so I really recommend, that parents, when they have young children, cut out some time where they're going to, spend time together. Have a date if it's possible.
What do you say, once a week?
Okay. Absolutely, if at all. Hire
without the kids,
without the kids. And here's another part I put on, and I always say, it's okay to talk about the children the first 30 minutes. After that, no more child talk. You have to talk to the person that you're on the date with.
Right.
Yeah, instead of talking about the children. So you get 30 minutes of being mommy, daddy, and then you have to come into relationships so that you kind of remember and find the connection that you had before the children were born. Children enter our world. They should not be all that there is in our world. They enter the world that we have, so we want to keep that alive.
And what's great about parenting?
I bet parents lay themselves down on a pillow every night and say, what is so great about it?
Why did I do this?
Yeah. I think it's, a thing to keep in mind and a great perspective setter is that we get this rare privilege to be fundamental in developing who this child is going to become as a man or a woman, right? And we get the opportunity to pass on to them this whole idea about what is it to be socially and emotionally intelligent, because that's our job,
right?
And it's a great, like I say, privilege. It's an honor to think that I'm going to be influencing that in the years to come.
That's an amazing legacy you can leave.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know you're living smart?
I try to live in the moment, and I try to live in a certain kind of peaceful balance and kind of free. And that's not always easy. So what I try to do to remember how to find my way back there is I try to make a daily practice of getting still and getting my mind calm, getting myself receptive. And when I can do that, I feel very teachable.
You're still wanting to be taught, right?
Yeah.
And you're teaching other people and you want to be taught yourself.
Yeah, I feel very teachable, and from there I can be, calm and patient
there you go.
And free.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deborah Fry, for being with us. And to
My
learn
pleasure.
more about this topic, go to our website. There you'll also find a complete resource list. You can also email us or call us with your comments at 713-743-8513. And that's our show for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Remember to live smart. I'm Patricia Gras. Have a disciplined week.
For a transcript of this program, send $6.95 to the address on your screen. Please include the name of the guest.